Uh-oh, it's gotta adjust. What's up? How y'all doing? Back with another video. Thomas Sowell, let's get it, let's go.
Africa. How many continents are in Africa? Africa is a continent, bro. In Ghana is a country like I am not American, I am Spanish.
The idea that shutting down the Department of Education would be some sort of disaster is one of those assumptions that people repeat without ever feeling the need to prove. But if we take a step back and examine the results rather than the rhetoric, the case for keeping it becomes much harder to defend. The Department of Education was established in 1979 under Jimmy Carter. Now, if someone wanted to argue that American education has improved since then, they are welcome to try. But they will have a hard time finding any evidence to support it. The fundamental issue here is that education has been in decline since long before the Department of Education existed, but its creation only accelerated that trend rather than reversing it. If a private company continually produced worse results while demanding more money and greater control, people would be outraged. But when it comes to government, failure is too often rewarded with even more resources and power. One of the biggest failures of the education system today is that it has abandoned the most basic function of education, teaching students how to think in favor of teaching them what to think. We have gone from a system that was supposed to cultivate knowledge and critical thinking to one that is instead focused on feelings, indoctrination, and political activism. Students are not being taught mathematics, science, or history in the way that previous generations were. They are being taught narratives carefully curated to fit whatever ideology is currently fashionable among the so-called educational experts. And this gets to a much deeper problem. The people who control education today are not people who prioritize education. They are people who prioritize ideology. If we look at the endless stream of fads that have taken over the education system in the past half century, self-esteem programs, whole language reading methods, Common Core, and now woke education, none of these things have been about improving academic achievement. They have been about imposing the worldview of the anointed on the rest of society.
I don't think woke view has taken over much because Donald Trump got elected. Like, if woke really has done what people claim it has done, right? How did Donald Trump get elected? How are conservatives able to roll back on all these programs? That easily. If woke was doing as much damage as people say it was, first things first. There are a lot of shit that was happening on the woke side I disagree with too. I'm not gonna say what. There's a lot I do disagree with. But I just don't think the ideology was sticking out that much. We definitely do learn math, science, and we definitely learn math, science, history, and reading. Those are all electives still in schools. And most ideologies are not taught on the school level. They're removed because most parents don't want them taught on the school level. People are fighting to get some of these ways of thinking into the schools. But to be honest, like, I don't even know if they're ways of thinking. They're just educating people on experiences that other people have. It's just white people fear it so much because they want to cover up the blood-soaked history. They don't want to talk about the things that they've done because when you start talking about it, it makes you look at the country a lot different. It does, especially with certain things that were accepted. But I think, in my personal opinion, and I think in the year's time, if we all learn these things and just unlearn it, unpack it, realize that it's a part of what we are and what created this country to be still great. Country is still great. I think like it'll go away. I think the more we try to like roll back on everything, keep closing it down, people popping up, doing whatever they can do, the longer it's going to keep going on. Because you're just right now, I'm telling you, the Trump administration, people are having a field day with everything they're doing right now on the left. That's why everybody's so quiet. They have so much ammunition for when people come out and try to say they're not racist now. He's giving them so much ammunition. Like, everything he's rolling back on. The white African refugees he let in, but no one else he wants to let in. Like, the many things that are being said by people that admire him specifically. The comedians that are coming out now that are confident to say racist comments. Like, it's all showing itself. However, though, I think it should too. I think that's a good thing too. I think people should be able to say whatever they want. But I definitely think that everything is starting to reveal itself. What people really want to say and what people really want to be is racist. Not all people, but like I feel like one of them leftists, but it's like arguing. It's like y'all say too much in the comments. So like in the comments, I gotta like battle y'all to a degree, even if I agree with some of y'all on certain things. And it's like nope.
Now, what does the Department of Education actually do? That's a question most people don't even bother to ask. If we look at its budget, we see that most of its money is not spent on classrooms or textbooks. It is spent on bureaucracy. It is spent on hiring consultants and funding research studies that justify further government intervention. It is spent on federal programs that dictate what local schools can and cannot do, regardless of what parents want or what students need.
Why do I use Navam?
I didn't know that.
No one asked you. It makes managing business
One of the great myths in education is that the problem is a lack of funding. The United States spends more money per student than almost any other country in the world, yet our results continue to decline. Countries like South Korea and Finland spend far less and get far better results. Why? Because they focus on academic rigor while we focus on political agendas and social engineering. More money does not mean better education if that money is being wasted on administrative overhead, politically motivated programs, and layers of bureaucracy that make it harder, not easier.
But on the federal level, down to the state level, like where in any of these states are they not teaching the things like that? Our education system just sucks, period. Like where are they not teaching the things that the rest of the world are learning? Like people aren't becoming dumb. He's not making sense here. People aren't becoming dumber in this country because they're not teaching them. They're rolling back on education. They're rolling back on certain things in education. Like remember, we had Head Start before. Now we got No Child Left Behind. Like they're rolling back on certain things in education. Like I don't understand him saying like, oh, we're focused on political agendas. You yourself think about it. Is he making any sense? Where in high school did you learn anything that was political when you were in mathematics, reading, engineering, mathematics, reading, science, or history? Where did you learn any political agenda? I learned about me being black was slavery. But when I did learn about slavery, it was that's all where we started at. I didn't really learn anything else. You learn about it and then you move on. Like you learn about the wars, but I'm 30 years old. I'm not that far away from the education system that he said 1974. Like and we learned all the same things that other countries are learning. I just think other countries are just more dedicated to getting their kids to learn. We're not dedicated to it. We don't put any money into it. And many teachers have told me that on the smaller levels, they don't have any funding. They don't. They're not free to be able to do what they want to do as teachers. Like it's like there's a lot of restrictions. So I don't know.
For teachers to do their job. One of the most destructive consequences of federal control over education has been the dumbing down of standards. It is easier to create the illusion of success than to actually achieve success. Instead of ensuring that students meet high academic standards, the government has continually lowered the bar. We have seen grade inflation, standardized test scores being manipulated, and curricula watered down to make sure no one ever feels like they're falling behind. But education is not supposed to be about self-esteem. It's supposed to be about learning. Who benefits from all of this? Certainly not the students, certainly not the parents. The real beneficiaries are the teachers' unions and the bureaucrats who depend on the system remaining exactly as it is. Teachers' unions have fought tooth and nail against any form of accountability, whether it is performance-based pay, school choice, or even the ability to fire ineffective teachers. They have opposed charter schools, voucher programs, and any initiative that would give parents more control over their children's education. And why?
I know you guys, instead of jumping in the comment section throwing insults, and you can do that if you want to, I don't give a fuck, I ignore that shit. But challenge the argument that I'm making here. He just said teachers unions are fighting against being fired, right? I've talked to many people from teachers unions, right? And many people, and they always say the same things, like there are so many restrictions and regulations put amongst them, right? And the unions sometimes fight, but most of the time can't get anything done because the government tells them this is what you can, this is what you can't do. He's saying this extremely backwards, right? He's saying it's the union's fault for that. But the unions are challenging the federal government. They're challenging the state and the federal government on these things. Like, what can they do and what can they do? What can't they do? I'm confused here.
Wouldn't they? The moment education becomes about results rather than rhetoric, their grip on power begins to loosen. This is the core problem with federal control of education. It removes power from parents and communities and hands it over to bureaucrats who have no stake in the outcomes. Parents know what is best for their children. Local communities are better equipped to decide what their schools need than someone sitting in an office in Washington, D.C. But the people in charge of education policy believe they are smarter than the rest of us.
But the people in charge of education policy, I agree. Like, he's not saying the government's not in charge of this. Like, it's the governors of specific states. They, like, what Trump did, y'all don't even know this. Y'all got to research this. When Trump dismantled the Department of Education, which he really didn't do because it's back up and running for people to grab their student loans. So, you know, it's interesting that little part of it is funny. But what Trump really did was kind of just tell y'all the shit that's already existing. Like, it's already passed to the states. The states make the decision on education. They do. It's just, and that's why you have southern states that believe that black people actually liked slavery. You have southern states with kids in there that believe that. They believe that. You have southern states that still believe racist propaganda. They're not changing anything. They're not rearranging anything in these states. Like, what do they talk? What is he talk? What is he talking about? Like, the governors do control. The local districts do have somewhat of a control. The unions, the teachers unions, push back because the controls sometimes seem ridiculous.
They believe they should decide what your child learns, what values they are taught, and even what political ideology they are expected to adopt.
That's not true either. Give me one school that told you to be a Democrat or a Republican. That's not true. Most like if anything, you're learning more to be a conservative than a liberal. That's for sure. But give me one school that told you how to think. Like, not in college. I'm talking about high school, elementary. These are the primary learning years of most children and most people.
We are now at a point where students are being punished for thinking independently. We see students being penalized, not for being wrong, but for failing to conform to whatever the prevailing orthodoxy is at the moment.
Do you count that into the trans community? I'm just curious. Like, trans people think differently. Are they not being punished for thinking differently? Do you count that into the black community, Hispanics, whites too? Like, whites who think differently, do you count that into them? I'm just curious. Like, you're saying they're being punished. Sounds like right now the trans community is being more punished than anybody else. Not saying I don't understand anything about the trans. I'm not trying to get too deep into that, but that's interesting though. That he said they're being punished for something that,
whether it is critical race theory, gender ideology, or any number of other fashionable causes, the goal is no longer...
This guy is jumbling so much together that I know people who aren't educated enough to understand don't understand this. But critical race theory, gender ideology, anything like that is not taught on the school. They're not taught on the elementary levels. They're taught on the college levels. They're taught on college levels, and they're not... You don't have to take these courses. You can take these courses. They're a part of an elective. You can choose to take these courses, but that's what should be allowed. Like, these type of conversations should be amongst the university. Him going against it is weird because it's like, that's what intellectuals do. They battle this on the academic level. Does this theory hold up to societal standards or norms? No, does this theory hold up to what is happening in society? And we can debate it amongst each other. Fuck this dude, I don't know.
Education, it is compliance. It is the fact that many students graduate high school unable to read at a college level or do basic math seems to concern no one in the education establishment. What matters is that they leave school with the right opinions. Now, people will ask, what happens if we eliminate the Department of Education? The real question should be, what would happen if we didn't? How much worse do things have to get before people realize that centralized control over education has been a failure? Education is one of the most critical functions of any society, and yet we have entrusted it to people who care more about politics than about students. If the Department of Education were shut down tomorrow, states would still have their own education departments. Local school boards would still exist. Private schools and charter schools would still operate. The difference would be that control over education will return to the people who actually have to live with the consequences. It would no longer be dictated by bureaucrats and union bosses whose main priority is preserving their own power. What would education look like without federal control? Well, for one, there would be competition. The school choice programs would give parents the ability to send their children to schools that actually educate rather than indoctrinate. Teachers would be accountable for their results rather than protected by tenure rules that make it nearly impossible to fire the incompetent. Standards would be set based on what students need to succeed, not on what makes adults in the system feel good about themselves. Some people will say that eliminating the Department of Education would hurt poor and minority students the most, but if we look at the reality, we see that these students are the ones suffering the most under the current system. Inner city schools have been failing for decades, despite billions of dollars in federal funding. Meanwhile, minority students who attend charter schools or private schools...
They don't dump billions of dollars of federal... He's just blatantly lying now. They don't dump billions of dollars of federal funding into these schools. That's a lie. That's just a blank lie.
Through voucher programs, routinely outperform their peers in traditional public schools. The difference isn't money, it's control. When parents have a choice, they make better decisions than bureaucrats ever could. Education is too important to be left in the hands of the people who have failed at it for so long. The longer we allow the Department of Education to dictate policy, the more generations of students we lose. The choice is not between an imperfect local system and a perfect federal one. The choice is between a system where parents and communities have a say and a system where they do not. Shutting down the Department of Education wouldn't be the end of education. It would be the beginning of reclaiming it.
Yeah, he was jumbling. I'm telling you, he was jumbling so many different things at once. So many different things going on at once that I really don't think he really fully even understood his own argument. The Department of Education, it doesn't do what people think it does. Like, the states already do everything that people are arguing about. Like, that Trump claimed that it was. The only thing the Department of Education does is send funding. That's all it does. And it does not send funding to inner cities. That's why they're asking for more money. It sends funding to colleges in areas like in poverty-stricken areas, somewhat too. Like that's definitely a toss-up too. But Department of Education does not. That's always been the complicated thing. Like, where is money going to be allocated? And it doesn't. And it's right. It doesn't really help inner cities that much. So I don't know whether dismantling it or not doesn't make a difference to us. We'll be fine because we've been fine this whole time through this fucked up ass system. But anyways, y'all. Peace.